Welcome to the World of Warships with Captain Yamo. I am your host, Captain Yamo, and this is the Tier VIII Japanese Destroyer, the Fubuki. A ship I really haven't been playing as much lately because it's getting kind of difficult for destroyers. I have another video I put together that I'll load up at some point after this one where I talk about it some more, or mention it at least. And it's not just that they've buffed all the other ships around it, but now they've added the radar consumable for the Russian cruisers, and I believe they're going to add it to the American cruisers at some point. And so it's going to make using a destroyer that much more difficult. And not that it should be easy. I'm not looking for an easy thing. What I'm looking for is a fairness, a certain amount of fairness to it. I've mentioned it before. When an equal tier destroyer enters into that terminal range on an equal tier battleship, it really ought to be the destroyer winning most of the time. But what I'd like to talk about here is the idea that when you're playing the game, as soon as the match starts, you are on a battlefield. And during World War II times, when they would send the convoys across the ocean, when they would get to areas that they knew to be dangerous or thought might be dangerous, they would start changing their speed, changing their direction randomly. As an entire convoy, they would start zigzagging, and where the convoys were much more predictable, they suffered for it. You get hit. If you travel straight and true in a battle zone, you're gonna get hit. Now, to get to Tier 8, you really do have to play quite a bit. And there is a replay bug going on right now. And what I was doing is, the whole time I was coming up here, I was preparing for the Farragut or some other destroyer to come around that headland over here on the right. But I was watching the track of that North Carolina. He went right along the other side, the far side of that island, and he just kept traveling at the same speed. And so I figured, send some torpedoes out there. Let's see where they go. When you're shooting your torpedoes at about maximum range, and a lot of the times, unless you're in a terminal charge towards an enemy ship, that's what you're doing. You're firing them from as far away as you can to maintain your invisibility. You really don't have much of a chance of hitting somebody if they take some random turns. That's all it takes, is just some random motion. Oh, and I missed it. All that guy had to do to avoid that being hit like that was to change his speed or turn. So when you're in a battleship or you're in a cruiser, just because you think you're safely behind an island, you need to think, change my direction and turn. Look at damn torpedo magnet, that is, the guy says. Or this thing is. Here I'm using my smoke screen to hide in it and take pot shots at the Farragut. Really cheap way to hit the enemy, but hey, if it works, do it, right? That guy is a torpedo magnet because he doesn't turn his ship. He just drives straight. And anytime you're around an island, you have to be thinking there's a destroyer on the other side that might just decide to ambush you, like I ambushed him with those torps. So the point of this video is that you need to be aware. You're in the match, you're on the field of play. There's a good chance that somebody is targeting you, even if you can't see them. On my, I think I have on the American battleship, although I may have lost it now. I used to have Sixth Sense, which would allow you to know if you've been spotted. And some people say, well, battleships are spotted all the time, and so you should always assume. Well, that North Carolina, he wasn't always assuming, right? Always assume that you're being spotted unless you have Sixth Sense and it's telling you you're not. I put Sixth Sense on my battleship. Sorry, I was gonna say destroyer for a while, because as soon as I would get hit, as soon as I would be detected, I would start changing my direction, changing my speed. You know, if you like to watch the Mighty Jingles YouTube videos, you'll hear him talk about how dumb battleship drivers are. And it doesn't have to be that way. All you have to do is change direction and change your speed. And torpedoes become less of a problem until you get really, really close. And once you're really, really close, your dispersion on your guns is dropping so dramatically that it makes hitting destroyers relatively easy. Or at least in my opinion, it's relatively easy to hit them once they're within about 10 kilometers. I don't care what kind of a destroyer it is. If they're within about 10 kilometers, I usually feel pretty confident that I can shoot them. Or would take my chances with it at least. And I shouldn't feel that way in a battleship with a destroyer up close, given the game mechanics. Okay, I'm not talking real world where you know, you have an entire ship that's built towards destroying other ships. What I'm talking about is in this artificial game world where you have this paper rock scissor mentality that, you know, a cruiser beats a destroyer, a battleship beats a cruiser, and a destroyer beats a battleship, and then an aircraft carrier can kind of take the piss out of just about anybody. You really need this kind of you need to foster that. If you're going to use the rock paper scissor model, then the rock and the paper and the scissor all have to be equal in a sense. You know, just my little soapbox on the game mechanics. As I recall, I don't recall doing a whole bunch more in this match that's real useful for my team. You know, here I'm being spotted by these bombers. And so I might as well be using my my anti-air. As soon as they move far enough away that they can't spot me, I turn it off. So now I'm taking shots on the Colorado. I'm almost 10 kilometers away. Well, 9.5, right? Okay. Now the Colorado is certain, has to be certain, if he was watching his mini-map, which is another skill that you really need to develop, has to be certain that there is a destroyer within about 10 kilometers of him. I mean, I was firing at the bombers, right? Absolutely visible, at least for that time. So how many of those torpedoes are we going to be able to hit on this guy? Well, whatever the number, it's too many. It's far too many. There you go. And he's even going to turn into him. Thank you. Unfortunately, it was only 2 of 3. But if he had just changed his speed to 2/3 or 3/4 for 5 to 10 seconds at some point and made a 5 to 10 degree turn to starboard or port at any point along there, none of those torpedoes would have hit. Not a single one. He looks pretty damaged. I don't think he's turning as fast as he should, and he's losing tons of life to these other ships. And so he turns, and look what happens. I'm pretty sure all those torpedoes miss. And I fired those a lot closer than I did the other ones. If you're in a battleship or a cruiser, and you decide firing your guns is more important than turning your ship every once in a while, expect to get nailed. Expect to be a magnet. What else can you do? And then, of course, I make a mistake here. I allow myself to get too close to that Cleveland, so I have to pop smoke. And watch what the Cleveland does. Mr. Sneaky Bastard. He slowed down. He sped up. Turned twice, both to port and starboard. Watch what happens to these torpedoes. Nothing. They sail right by him. So I have to put the amazing Japanese guns to work. With the obvious results, 1,200 points of damage off of 4 hits of HE. Just more nuisance than anything else. There we go, 1,000 points of damage, 4 hits. Yeah, something's got to change for destroyers. It's not right. Just not right. Theoretically, as people practice and work with it more, this kind of stuff will stop happening. It'll get more and more difficult. Once you start playing like in a tier 10 match, with your destroyers and whatnot, there's a real tendency for you to miss a lot of shots on enemy ships. They just are a little too, most of the players are a little too savvy to travel in straight and easily predictable lines. So we're going to go ahead and fast forward it here a bit. I don't believe I get much more done in this match. And if I start firing off torpedoes or whatever here at this Cleveland, I'll slow it down. But I think pretty much at this point, it's just me trying to race into a position here to do something, and not getting much done. A couple of shots. I think those were hits on the Cleveland. Yeah, I was shooting at the Cleveland over the island. Trying to nab that kill. Here's a question for you. Now, in my personal opinion, there you go. Look at that. 277,000 credits, 4,005 XP, 33 hits, 33 gun hits, 6 torpedo hits, 2 incapacitations, 2 destroyed, 1 set on fire, 4 floods caused, and captured a base for once. Let's see where we're at. Top dog. Wasn't bad. It was a decent match, I think. Got to let the guns sing a little bit. Almost 10,000 points of damage from the guns and 60,000 points of damage off of those torpedoes launched. And well, okay, so the North Carolina, I think he thought he was safe because he was coming around from behind those islands. But if you think the enemy could be around, and he had to have imagined that there was enemies around because we were capturing sea. You can't travel in a straight line. I mean, maybe the guy was like I get sometimes. You get a little tired, or you get a little dopey, and you sail straight and true. But sail straight and true, and you're gonna take torpedoes, long-range torpedoes. Took no damage whatsoever, which is awesome. And let's take a look here. So we had 13,000 on auto repair. I guess that's the refueling costs. And then 10,260 in ammunition. That's alright. We ended up making 274,000 credits. We had a 1,780 base XP game with the 1.5 multiplier and the premium bonus. We got it all the way up to 4,000, and that's a pretty fair hit. I'd like to thank you for joining me in World of Warships, and I hope to see you on the digital high seas.